Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Ham Radio. I'm joined tonight by the contest crew, Randy K5ZD, Chris KL9A, Bill W9KKN, and Dan N6MJ. We're going to dig into a full wrap-up of ARRL Sweepstakes single sideband, then look ahead to CQ Worldwide CW, where all eyes are on the developing showdown between Dan, Chris, and Braco E77DX for the top spot and a possible new world record. We'll also talk through the newly released Q5 analysis of the matchup with contesting legend Jose CT1BOH and what his insights mean for the weekend ahead. This episode is supported by DX Engineering, trusted by operators who build stations meant to last and perform when it counts. Randy, Chris, Bill, Dan, welcome back to Q5. Randy, why don't you kick it off since you had that great interview with K5TR? Talk to me about sweeps.
Well, the sweepstakes is an old contest. It's been around for 90-something years, so it's kind of the granddaddy of them all. It's based on traffic handling. You either love it or you hate it. But the phone contest was great. The conditions were a little mixed. I think we had some kind of disturbance. But there seemed to be lots of people on, lots of new guys that were giving low numbers but doing it very, very well. So that was encouraging. And then there was quite a battle at the top between Levi at Chris's station and George K5TR at his place in Austin. So had a little bit of everything that makes a great contest.
Yeah, certainly the battle between Levi and George was a fascinating watch that went on almost all weekend long. And Chris, that was your station. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was great. Randy says people love it or hate it. Put me in the camp of not loving it. So Levi had asked me a while ago, hey, can I do sweepstakes there? Yeah, that's no problem. You're going to be by yourself, in the middle of nowhere with a generator, and I'll go for it. But luck would have it, the way my work schedule worked out, I actually had Saturday off. Normally I work that day. So I was up there the whole time with Levi, so that worked out great. We had to fix, of course, some antennas before we started. Randy laughs, but actually only had to fix one antenna, but we got the 80-meter four square beefed up for like the 7th time, and it worked great. Still standing today. And Levi and I talked about strategy and what to expect, and I very clearly told him, hey man, winning sweepstakes from here is going to be pretty freaking hard. You get a spider beam for your second direction at 30 feet, and your main antenna is a tribander at 44 feet. So set your expectations accordingly, right? So we did, and he's got this strategy, and we talked through some things, and we got up on, it's before sunrise on Saturday morning, and we're out in the dark working on the antenna because it was windy the night before. And at about 11 a.m., we go inside, everything's all set up, spider beam's up, and we turn the radios on, and Europe is just like screaming loud on 10 meters. I mean, just as good as I've ever heard it from there. And I said, okay, Levi, you might have a better chance at this than I originally thought. So here's the deal. You cannot screw this up. I told you have to win. And I said, you still have to win. And he said, okay. I'm like, no pressure, dude, but we have 100% success rate in sweepstakes at this station. You can't screw that up. And Levi kind of like, okay. So we talked through some things, and I said, you're going to be behind for the entire first day. Just be prepared. If you're on the scoreboard, you'll be behind the whole day. And he was. And about 11 p.m., I looked at the scoreboard next to him, and he could tell that I was kind of worried, and he pulls his headphones off, and he says, don't worry about it. I'm playing my game. I'll catch up tomorrow. I said, that's bold statement, man. You definitely get some big guns here. Okay, good job, kid. Whatever you want to do. And sure enough, at one point, he was 10 Qs behind for hours. And then he stuck to his strategy, and he pulled ahead, and he did a great job. I was very impressed. And it was a great weekend. I don't know what else you want to know. It was freaking awesome.
I went out Saturday night to operate the contest, and there was a huge bolt of lightning that went across the sky. So I decided, okay, maybe not. So I got on Sunday morning, and I go to 75 about 10 minutes after sunrise, and the first station I hear is KM7W. And he had a great signal.
This was on 80 meters?
Yeah, an 80.
Yeah.
So I gave him number one, and he heard me right away, no problem. And then I heard him and George both during the weekend. They both had fabulous audio, great signals, and just really clean, clear, the kind of audio that almost invites you to call them. So they both were really good in that department.
Yeah, he did a great job coaching people through the exchange. I got an email yesterday from a guy who it was his first HF contact ever. He worked a kid who was 13 years old, first time on the radio. He's got all these great stories of these guys that, they listen to you and then they jump in when they're comfortable. And inviting those guys in over the period is a skill that George absolutely has mastered. And Levi was right there, and I was super impressed with his patience, at least over the air, maybe not in the shack, but over the air, talking to guys, encouraging them. And he'd be like, okay, well, when you work the next guy, he's number 2, so make sure you send all that to the next guy. And it was great. It was really cool to watch. And he did the 2 BSIQ and the 2 radios. He pushed 100% the whole time. I don't think I would have done anything different. The kid did great.
So one of the things I thought was kind of cool, and I heard this from Ron Koenig, who had said that Levi, K6JO, and KT0W, and N4ML, and one other person were all operating the RIDI contest together. And these 4 were in the top 10 of the scoreboard all weekend long, which was just kind of cool.
Yeah, what was cool is, they're all young guys. N4ML, I think he's 21. I actually had a beer with him in Dayton, and I had to question his age. But he was at the new K6RO station in Maine. That's super cool. KT0W, Nick and I operated in KL7RA together once. So he's in the next state over in South Dakota. It's 650 miles away. So that was kind of our neighboring station, a really long ways away. It was just cool to see all these young guys pushing hard, and they were talking about each other and trash talking, and it was interesting because that's the same thing Dan and I used to do when we were that age. Just getting on and trying to beat the big guys is super cool. It was great.
And Dan, I saw your call sign on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I got on for a little bit. One thing that, I've done sweepstakes, both modes, seriously, for many, many years. Usually in the multi-single category, which is very intense. And Levi got a good taste of that too with the multi-singles, along with John, K6AM. And John was legendary for walking those guys through the exchange. And honestly, one of my favorite things to do during this contest was, since I wasn't serious, I didn't mind spending a couple minutes talking to these guys and walking them through that exchange too. And it really makes a difference. And I do think that that's one of those key skills that you really need. And it's hard to come by sometimes. But Levi definitely has it down. I have to say that I was glued to that scoreboard the entire weekend. I'm happy that I think it was the top 3 guys, or roughly the top 3 guys, were on the scoreboard. Now, unfortunately, after that, it kind of fell off the cliff. A lot of those guys were not on the scoreboard, which was, I get it. I'm not going to tell anybody that they have to be, right? That's not my goal here. But it was a little disappointing to see the actual results and find out, oh, okay, out of the top 10, I think 3 of the guys were on the scoreboard. It would be nice if more people were participating in that. And I, just for example, I know for certain during Worldwide CW, Chris and I and Bronzo will all be on the scoreboard as well. And I think it just adds to the fun factor for everybody. So I think the only thing that was semi-disappointing about the contest was the fact that there were so many guys not on the scoreboard.
I do have to give a shout out to Les KI5GTR, who is a big follower of Q5 and one of my Parks on the Air buddies. When I first saw him on the scoreboard, he was in 12th, and he worked all weekend long, moved himself up to 8th. And you're right, once the 3830 scores came out, he dropped a little bit, but I know he attacked it with a passion, as well as Marion, W1GRL. She was out there doing a good job on the scoreboard, so really great to see. And Bill, are you set up in Illinois yet?
I am fully set up in Illinois as of, let's call it even this week. I mean, I had the airplane to move over, I had all the truck and just a bunch of stuff. So I've got almost enough for a remote station set up here. So I'll probably start remoting into ZF a lot more and kind of getting that going again. We haven't started any construction on the actual big station that I'm going to try to build out here, but I've got a plan and sort of starting to figure that out. And watching all these guys on the scoreboard, like Levi and others, just rock sweepstakes, really is motivating me to like get back into this as quickly as possible. Like, I mean, I literally can't wait for next week for Worldwide, because it is the season.
I got one more thing to add. That's a little off topic, but Levi and I were stuck in this 12 by 20 shack together for a long time, so we had time to talk about things, and we talked about the young guys that were on for sweepstakes and how cool it was. And on the ride up, he said, we really shouldn't be pushing so much to get the quote youth involved. That's not really the push we should have. The push we should have is getting guys to actually be elmers and learn how to mentor and learn how to be elmers and actually take that step. And as you guys know, that's something I feel strongly about. And it was interesting from Levi's perspective, and he may correct me on this, but I think he said his elmer had only made like 40 Qs on HF or something. But just his coaching and guidance and enthusiasm for the hobby, just got the spark, and that's all it took. And even if guys don't think they are that person, I promise you are. So don't just throw it away because you don't have a big station and you can't mentor these guys of any age. Not everybody's getting into it at 17 anymore. People have careers; they have to do it when they have time. So that's my soapbox. But it was an interesting perspective from Levi, and I wholeheartedly agree.
I believe strongly in that too. I sold my ICOM 7300 just within the last week or two. I had it on eHAM for a long time, just kind of sitting there, and then this Kilo Mike 6 guy reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, I'm interested," and so I started reaching out to him. And it turns out, this is going to be his first station, his first radio, first HF radio, which I think is super cool. I pointed him to this channel. I mean, it's probably going to be like way over his head, but I'm like, hey, if you're ever interested in like what we do, like contesting wise, come check out Q5. He's not that far away from me. I said, if you ever want to come to the station, check, here at my house, I've got a, decent station. And I think those little things really make a big difference, to help encourage activity in ham radio in general, and especially in contesting. And I think that's super important.
Well said. Let's jump into the CQ Worldwide CW. Who wants to take it?
Well, one of the great things we have this year is a week between the sweepstakes and the Worldwide. Thanksgiving is still right up against it, so no break from that. But it's kind of seems strange to have this extra weekend for people to travel or to get things repaired or fixed or whatever, and mostly just to get some space so your family doesn't feel like another weekend in the radio.
So Randy, what's your plan?
I will be on from home here, trying to see if all this station I put together works as well as it feels like it does, and haven't decided whether I'll be assisted or unassisted yet. In Worldwide, I like to go assisted because I hate the end of the contest where I look at the scores and realize there were all these cool expeditions that I never heard the whole weekend. So I kind of like doing assisted just because it makes it more fun to be a DXer all weekend.
And do you have a goal?
No, I haven't really thought that far ahead. Do as well as to beat NA8V, I guess, to win W8. That's my goal.
And Bill, you're going to ZF1A, right?
That's absolutely right. So we've got a group of guys going down there. It's myself, Marty, N2IC, and K5WA, and Trey, and 5KO. And a few of them were there with us last year. I think the only one wasn't K5WA. And anyway, we're gonna go for the multi-2 North America record. That's sort of our goal. We don't have our fearless leader Dan with us to help us through that, but we'll try our best. We'll try our best, and it'll be a blast no matter what. I mean, the station was working great in September when we went down and visited for a work trip, and I've been kind of poking around, checking on things here and there, and it looks like it's all still right where we left it, and hoping for the best, and really just can't wait to get on the air again.
And Dan and Chris, at this point, everybody in the ham radio world should know where you guys are heading. I'm not sure if you had a chance to watch the Jose CT1 BOH analysis, but I'd be interested in hearing your feedback if you did.
Yeah, before we get into that, I just want to just call out, because since my good buddies are going to be at ZF 1A, I do want to call out the fact that Bill has been really practicing hard with his CW skills. I think that that entire team is going to be like this dark horse that they're going to do a really great job. I am a little bit sad that I'm not going to be there. That's always a highlight of my of the year, is going down and joining those guys. We always eat a lot of good food, drink a lot of nice drinks, and do a contest together, you know. And so this year it's not going to happen, but I'm super excited to see how they do.
I'm sure we'll be on the phone, Dan.
I see what you did there. You know, Dan, you still have a chance to change your flight if you'd rather go do
maybe. But yeah, so getting into CQ Worldwide at CW, it's CQ9A versus EF8R. I did have a chance to watch the Jose interview today, and I have to say I love his energy. He really knows his stuff, and I honestly, you know, I watched through the entire thing, and I don't think I really disagreed with any of his points. There really are going to be some positives for each station.
Of course you didn't disagree. You said you were going to win.
So I think he's right in that aspect, you know. But you know, but he had some good points though. You know, like there is a slight advantage for EA8, and I think Chris and I agree to that. But then there is definitely an advantage antenna-wise to CQ9A, and on CW these advantages are not quite as pronounced as they are on phone. So even though, okay, maybe Chris is going to be S5 and EA and I'm going to be S9, he's still going to work those guys anyway, right? So I really do think that things are going to shake out to be very, very close. One of Jose's points was, you know, this accuracy is a big thing. I really think that if all goes as planned, Chris and I and possibly Brazzo are going to end up very close to each other at the end. And it's really going to come down to lock checking. And that's super exciting for me, you know, like I want nothing more than to have an excellent competition between all of us where none of us have any station issues and we can all go, you know, full out for all 48 hours and see who the best man is. That's my goal.
Yeah, I took some notes here. Sorry, guys. If you haven't seen Jose's video, just hit pause on this one and go watch it real quick and then come back, because he's really good at analyzing and you know, making it easy to digest. He didn't say anything I wasn't aware of already, so that was good. There were some things that he didn't say that I won't really divulge here. Dan may be aware, but he talked a lot about the advantages of EA8, but he didn't talk about the advantages of CT3. And there are some, and I know Dan is aware. So what's funny is normally Dan and I talk about strategy, you know, all the time. We're pretty quiet with each other on strategy on this one. It's kind of interesting. And it goes both ways. I'm not blaming him. I'm not doing it either. But, you know, one thing we did before phone was we did VOACAP and we did the propagation prediction and everything. And Dan knows this, but one of the data points was that in October, CT3 has 0 propagation to EA on 10. The propagation prediction software says 0, like absolutely none. And I can tell you that that's not true. We went to 121 of them on 10, and they were like 40/9. So the predictions and the, I guess, academic side of propagation is one thing, but actually being there and experiencing it's a whole other thing. And as Dan knows as well, it could go either way. So it's very interesting to see the real life versus the prediction. I don't know how much you guys want me to talk, but I'm not going to watch the scoreboard. I can't. I want to not be psyched out either way. If I'm ahead, maybe I don't push as hard. If I'm behind, I might be demoralized and just be like, well, you know what? I can't catch up. I'm 3 million points behind. I did watch the scoreboard on WPX for various reasons, but I don't want to have to deal with that this time. So I don't know. Dan, are you going to watch the scoreboard?
Yeah, there's no way. Because the problem with watching the scoreboard is that it affects the way that you operate. And I know Chris feels the same way. We want to go out there, put in our best effort, regardless of what the outcome ends up being. As long as we can do, if we both put in 48 hours and do our best effort and let the, see who wins in that manner, I'm totally happy with what the outcome is. But if I'm watching halfway through the contest and Chris is 500 cues ahead, I'm going to be stressing out big time, and I don't want any of that stress. I'm going to be stressed out enough as it is, right? And so I think it's super important that we don't watch the scoreboard. And generally speaking, for all of our CQ Worldwide CW big time operations, we've never watched the scoreboard, and the main reason is it really can affect the way that you operate. And we're just going to go all out, all 48 hours. And let the best man win.
So in a different direction, so Chris, you've had some challenges with getting through the whole 48 hours in some past contests. Have you figured out what that is, or what your strategy is going to be to overcome
Yes
it?
to both. It took me a long time to figure out what the hell was going on. It's not ideal, but I can manage it, and I'm 100% confident I'll be fine. My doctor's pretty on board. I think it'll be. I'm not worried about it. If I was worried about it, I wouldn't be going. So I'm not going to do anything stupid. But I will be on for 48 hours, and it's going to be awful because operating 48 hours sucks. But it'll be great. But, Jose talked about EA8 being the only EF8R being the only EA8 on, and that's a big deal. I operated from cams in Costa Rica, where I was probably the only TI that was really on. There was a couple stragglers, but that's a big deal. I know what it's like to have all the mults call you, and Dan knows what it's like to not have them call you when ZF5T was on multi-op. Well, in this case, there's like ZF5T times 1,000 with all the CT3s that are on. So that's going to be a disadvantage. Can't change it. Whatever. I have some ways around that, but it is what it is. And he talks about the pileups being different from Zone 33, and I can tell you they are different from Zone 33. Everyone's way louder in Zone 33, and that makes it way easier. I can tell you that working a pileup of 500 S5 Europeans on every band from Zone 7 is really hard. I think it's just going to be, I don't want to say easier, but maybe more efficient to work the world from Zone 33 versus Zone 7, because, that's a long way from Europe, and Zone 33 is one hop. So I do have a little experience with that. So I don't think the pileups are going to be worse in Zone 33. I could be wrong, but I did do WPX there, and man, guys are so loud.
So there's all this talk about you two guys and Braco going to South America and so on. It is kind of a quirk in the way CQ Worldwide scoring works, that stations in North America are at a slight disadvantage, and they get 2 points for working USA guys as opposed to 3 for the other continents. But we can't ignore N2NT at V47T and W2SC at 8P5A. Those two guys are sure to they're both going to do a 2B SIQ. They've both been practicing. They both have substantial signals. It's just unfortunate that the way the scoring works, they have to start from a little bit behind, but I think they're going to be fun to watch as well, just to see how they can do in keeping up for QSOs and so on.
So guys, are we thinking more or less than 12,000 Qs?
If anybody's flying to Zone 33 hoping to get less than 12,000 Qs, they should probably go to ZF1A.
So you're thinking like 27 million or so, 28?
I got a spreadsheet.
That would be ideal. So the record is, what was it, 11,800 plus a few. That was from ZF1A. I do really think that 12,000 plus is possible. And if that's the case, then the record score will just be just that much higher because of, like Randy said, from CQ9A and EF8R, we don't have that 2-point issue. We virtually all Qs will be 3 points. So the goal here is to really set a new record. Honestly, I'm not gonna say I don't care, but as long as one of us sets the record and it's a record that no one's going to be able to break in the future. Like, I think that'd be super cool. That's kind of like that's like the main goal behind all this.
Talk is cheap. We could have an X84 flare the 2 days before the contest, and we could make 8,000 Qs, and whatever. But you have to be prepared for that, right? So I'm going into it knowing that it could be just a total dumpster fire of propagation. It absolutely could be. You never know. There could be a freak storm that rolls through and wipes, stations out or whatever. It's happened. I went to Costa Rica in a hurricane. It can happen. But if you're not prepared to make, a zillion QSOs, you're never going to.
So 12,000 Qs divided by 48 hours is $250 an hour for the entire weekend.
Yeah.
Easy.
Most people are happy to make $250 once.
Well, your first day is always way higher, right? But when you get into those high QSO things, your percentage the second day increases because you just can't work that many guys the first day. So I think the highest we've had in 24 hours, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, is like 7,200-ish. Wasn't much higher than that. So our goal has always been 8,000 in the first day. And from Costa Rica, ZF, there's like 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the night that are super slow. I don't see that happening in Zone 33. So the potential's there.
So if somebody wants to work you guys on 160 and 80, you're probably not going to be spending a lot of time there if you don't have to. So when should they look for you?
I don't know. I don't want to tell you what time I'm going to 160. So
I was trying to back into it.
0600, 1823, guys. No kidding.
The 160 move is crucial, and we all agree we kind of flubbed that one in phone. Brazzo nailed it in phone, by the way. I think he hit 160 perfectly. But I've done my done my homework, and I know when I want to try it. But the bands may be different. So if I say go at like Dan said 0600, maybe I'm not there at 0600 because something changed. It's CW at a skimmer. I'll get you. Who cares? Just work us on all bands, and whenever we're there, we're there.
I think Jose hit the nail on the head when he was talking about the potential for max QSOs in this contest from Zone 33, and the fact that we really have to have 20 meters open at night. And from Zone 33, it's very possible, and we hope that's what's going to happen, because that's the only way that we're going to ever get anywhere close to 12,000 Qs. If we end up in a low band struggle, honestly, I think the contest shifts to CT3 at that point, because as Bill, Chris, and I know, the station setup on 80 and 160 from CQ9A is just absolutely amazing, and that's where he's gonna dominate me. And so if we end up with that situation where there's no 20 meters, well, all the strategy that we have right now goes out the window. But I'm prepared for that too. If it happens, it happens. We'll deal with it. But one thing, not to give away my secrets to Chris, maybe you don't listen to this real quick. So one thing I was kind of thinking, I did look at Brazzo's score on phone. Okay. And here's the secret that he had on phone was that he didn't do lots of 2 BSIQ, but his second radio just stayed on 160, like that first night, the whole night. And what he was doing was two things. He was moving guys from his other bands to 160, and then occasionally he calls CQ. And once he gets spotted, then there's a brief run. You work 20 guys, and hey, guess what? 7 of those are mults, right? So I have this thought in my head, and it's probably not going to work, but I have this idea where on the third radio, because I'll be set up with 3 radios, I'm going to sit there on 160 and occasionally throw out some CQs, work a few guys because we'll be spotted right away on the skimmer, and maybe that'll bring in some additional mults that we might not get otherwise. So that's one of my little tidbits that I've been thinking about as a possibility. So
you say that like I haven't had the same idea. So cool story, bro.
Are you gonna have 3 radios, Chris?
Yeah, there's all kinds of radios at CQ9A. I might have 15 radios.
One more radio than you, Dan.
That's right. N6MJ radios plus 1.
So we did get a bunch of questions on Facebook. Do you guys mind answering some of those? And this is not just Chris and Dan. Anybody can answer these.
absolutely.
A couple people asked about fatigue and how you handle fatigue.
Not sure I'm the guy to answer that one, so...
It's a major issue for those of us going for 48 hours. I don't think there's a real good way to deal with it necessarily. You know, the biggest thing that you can do to prepare for that is before the contest. So, you know, being healthy, eating right, you know, that's really going to help you with your stamina. And unfortunately, I weigh more now than I have ever. So that's going to be one additional thing that Chris is going to be ahead of me on, is a little bit of stamina. But it's really, really hard. There's always going to be that time on that second day where you start to hallucinate. It's super crazy that we do this to ourselves, you know, like who wants to like go through that process of like seeing things, like moving around the room, like you have no idea what's going on, or you're sitting there on the radio thinking like, why are these guys calling me? Like, who wants to do that? I don't know, but we're doing it. So it's really hard.
Do any of you use any sort of mental reset when you find yourself in that spot?
You're not thinking very well when you're in that spot. So it's all you're on autopilot at that point. It's like guy calls, you type them in, you work them, you move on. I'm not sure you could go off in the corner and do some Zen exercise. That's not going to help you. You'll just fall asleep. You have to keep going. So in the end, what is the real thing that makes it happen? You have to want it really bad. You have to commit leading into this thing like, it's going to suck, it's going to hurt. So this is no different than guys who climb Mount Everest, guys who run marathons, whatever. You just have to mentally decide this is the most important thing for this 48 hours, and you're going to get there, even if it's crawling over glass. And then when it's over, you can relax and have bragging rights for a year or not.
And Dan, you somewhat touched upon this, but another question was, what do you eat and drink leading up to the contest, and what do you eat and drink during the contest?
Chris actually is a better person to answer this, but I'll start with that. So I found that during the contest, it's been helpful for me to eat a little bit less and drink a little bit less than I normally would on a regular day. Little things help, like if you eat, you know, maybe some bananas, protein bar here and there, but there's going to be no full meals. And if you, especially for me, if I drink a lot of water, then I'm going to be, you know, going to the bathroom a lot, and that's going to mean less cues, right? So I don't drink a lot, but you also can't like not drink anything, right? So there's a fine balance, but it's really hard. You know, got to make sure you have your M&Ms ready to go. But I don't know. But Chris actually knows a little bit about this, so I want to hear his take on it too.
Yeah, everyone's different, and I've learned that. I'm a carb guy. I've learned that the hard way. I have to have carbs. I have to have simple sugars. The first day is probably a different strategy than the second day. I have to have like a sandwich with bread. Otherwise, I just can't do it. M&Ms, peanut butter M&Ms are standard. Bananas are great. Bill likes the peanut butter M&Ms. Bananas are great. A lot of guys go straight protein. I can't do that, and I eat a lot of protein normally, but I have to have the carbs. It's fuel for your brain. And I only eat enough to stay, you know, not hungry. Dan mentions not drinking a lot. You know, you got to drink some, but he's not wrong. If you get up and you go pee, you know, over the course of 48 hours, you know, 15 times 5 minutes, that's enough to lose the contest. So diet's very important, and it's different for everyone.
Now, when you get tired, there is a tendency for your body to crave sweets. So that's both the good and the bad, right? The good news is, okay, you take some sweets, they do help give you this short-term boost, but you also crash afterwards. So it's you kind of have to watch out for that. But just knowing that, I mean, for me, my thing is chocolate donuts in the worldwide. I don't know what it is, but man, I get a box of chocolate donuts off to the side every once in a while. Just that's the go-to, even though I know it's terrible. But you just get to this place like, I got to have something like that.
And I don't do any caffeine until day 2. That's just me.
I think one interesting thing that Chris and I are going to have to deal with that we've never dealt with before in this type of situation is the fact that the contest starts at midnight local time. So you know, we're going to start at midnight, and then it ends at midnight. So I'm worried that the last couple of hours are going to be extremely difficult. You know, once the sun goes down and you're ready to go to bed and you still have to sit there until midnight, that to me
like 7
right
p.m.
around sunset. Yeah, it's like sunset time. And that I can deal with just fine. But I the sun goes down, you still got to operate 5 more hours. Like, ugh, I don't know. Kind of scared about that.
One of the things that Jose had talked about with the two of you, Dan and Chris, that you have a lot of experience with 2BSIQ, but you also practice a lot. And one of our viewers asked the question, how much do you practice?
Again, that's a trade secret, but I can say that I can say that
Every answer is I don't recall.
yeah. I practice every single day, even if it's just a couple of quick sessions or whatever. I did not practice during sweepstakes. I brought all the stuff with me to practice. I was too busy watching Levi and working on stuff, but the weather was good. But I practice every day, and if you don't practice, you're not going to be able to do it. So I'm sure Dan's in the same boat.
Yeah, definitely practice daily. I'm going to be honest with you. I've not practiced quite as much as I have in the past, but that's only because I feel like Chris and I have kind of gotten over that hump where we are able to do this a little more easily than we have in the past. Traditionally before we would always start our practice sessions like 4th of July. That was always the time. This is going back 7-8 years when we were doing things from ZF1A, TI7W, and at that time it was super necessary because we're still learning this stuff, and we would practice daily for 5 months leading up to this contest. Now, did I do it this time? I didn't, but I feel a lot more comfortable with operating. But I am, daily doing more surrender sessions right now. I do 2 to 3. Sometimes I do 6 or 7. They're 10 minutes each. And I'll carve some time out during the day and knock those out because some of these situations that we're in, like we might only get this chance once in our life to do an operation like this from Zone 33. So I want to be as prepared as I can be, and the practice really helps a ton.
Well, I'm sure when you guys get there, you're going to operate a lot, like almost make more QSOs than you will during the contest in the days leading up, if you can, if everything's set up and working. And
well, I am.
Well,
Dan's got to build a station.
I leave on Friday of this week. I'm not sure when this episode's coming out, probably around that time, but on Friday the 21st, me and Levi are flying out. We get to the station on the 22nd, and so that's Saturday. So we have 6 full days to get everything set up. I was talking to Levi earlier today. Our goal is by on the 3rd day to have a complete setup totally done. That's going to be antenna-wise and inside the shack. And it could be much quicker than that, potentially. Braco did so much work to the station that when he left, there wasn't a whole lot of work left to do. But I know they've had some storms on the island since Braco left. I don't know what the station's going to look like when we get there. Potentially we have to do outside work, or maybe if I'm really lucky, we don't have to do anything outside other than raising antennas and towers and stuff like that. If that's the case, it'll go much quicker. But if not, I think 3 days is our goal for setup. And then our goal after that is to make as many Qs as we can before the contest. I want to learn propagation. Jose brought up some good points in his interview too, where we don't have a lot of experience operating from Zone 33 in November. Okay, Chris did it in May for WPX. We did it last month. The last month is going to help us a lot, but it's still just slightly different from October. And now 5 weeks after that contest for the CW contest, it's just going to be that much different. So I need to learn when 10 meters opens, when it closes. Same for 15. I need to know a lot about 160 because unfortunately when I was at CQ9A, I didn't get a chance to operate at 160. And so I don't know what to expect, but I'll certainly be putting a lot of hours on the air, and we'll see how it goes.
So you're both using DX log, right?
Yep.
And why DX log of all the different choices there are?
The one we've been using for years. No reason to change. Why do you use write log?
Well, yeah, same thing. But I mean, is there a particular feature or something that brought you to DX log or that keeps you with it?
Yeah, it's got the advanced SO2R scenarios, and it just works great with the open source, 2 radio switching protocol. there's no reason to go to anything else. They all do the same thing. DXlog just does what we need a little better.
And I think the fact that we're so comfortable with our training process within DXlog. Now, I'm fully aware that, N1MM for sure, you can do the full Morse runner training as well. So don't get me wrong, I know you can do it there. But Chris and I have always done it through DXlog. And, since we trained for months and months on DXlog itself, it just makes sense to continue with that.
Now, do you take the latest version if a new version pops out the week of the contest, or are you locked down on?
I'll hit the new version, but I wouldn't do it without testing it for a little while.
Yeah, whatever the Wednesday version is, or Tuesday version. Unless there's like a last minute change that is clearly something you need. It's just completely broken.
So the last question I want to pose to you guys. I mean, I know there's a lot of joking around about N6MJ sucks, and I've got you in superhero outfits and Clash of the Titans and all that sort of stuff. But Gawain Williams asked, what's the one thing you admire about each other's operating style?
Oh man, didn't see that question.
So here's the thing, Chris and I have known each other forever. We've been competing against each other forever. We've kind of come up through the ranks together. We're WRTC teammates. We can trust each other to do what it is we want to do. And honestly, I think the fact that we're both going to be in Zone 33 is what makes all this special. Because, if Chris went to Zone 33 by himself, would he win and probably set a record? Absolutely. If I did the same thing by myself, would I probably win and maybe set a record? That probably would happen too. But what makes this special is we kind of share a brain in some ways when it comes to this contesting thing. And it really pushes us to the next level. Without that push, we'd probably be content to do things a little bit differently than we do now. And so I'm just really thankful that Chris is there to push me, and hopefully the same thing holds true for him.
I wouldn't even care about this stuff if it wasn't for Dan. I mean, who goes up against N6MJ in a contest? That's the dumbest thing. That's like the stupidest idea ever. Like, oh, I'm going to beat N6MJ. Yeah, okay, you are, whatever. So, Jose talks about him being more zen, and it's totally true. He's just, he even said it once, and I'll make it a little more PG, but nobody can operate, in a cluster of an environment better than Dan. I mean, he can operate with out of the paddle and no gear like he did in WRTC 2010. If the station's a disaster, his score's gonna be the same. So that's very impressive. But he's never broken under pressure except for the one time I saw him break under pressure in October. And I will say that the CQ9A station broke him once, and it's gonna break him again in November. I just can't turn it off, man.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything to add before we wrap up?
Well, we haven't talked about the HK, operation from Bronzo at all, and I feel bad, but I looked at the map, and he's pretty same latitude as TI7, really, only further east, which is going to be better. We can't rule that guy out of anything. I mean, that's a 12,000 QSO QTH. I disagree with Jose on that. Now, what are his low band antennas? I have no idea. I know from Zone 7, if you don't have huge low band antennas, you're done. Everybody can be loud on 20 through 10. Everybody can be loud on 40 through 10. To be loud on 80 and 160, especially from down there, takes some monumental effort. And the pileups will be absolutely intense. HK is not a common mult. I don't care what anybody says. You don't work 10 HKs. You work one. You work one guy on 20, going 25 words a minute, or a couple guys here and there. But he will be a rare mult, and he's going to have crazy pileups. The JAs are going to just be insane coming from the other side, and that's going to be intense. It's a 12,000 QSO QTH, hands down, with the right antennas.
And to be clear, I think we don't know a lot about his location. He hasn't been able to visit. I did get a text from him just before we started this recording, and he is feet on the ground in Colombia right now. So he will be at it tomorrow morning. And I hope to talk to him within the next 24 hours and find out exactly what he's faced with. I think he had a good idea, but even he wasn't sure what he was going to see once he got there.
Yeah, it's the efforts he's put in at D4, again in EA8, and now in HK just to get on the air are like crazy impressive. I know how much work that is, and I can't fathom doing it like 3 times in 1 year. There's no way. And one of the thing I wanted to point out is after the contest in WPXCW at Valerie's, got off the radio, had a glass of wine, said, yeah, cool, and sent the login, 15 minutes after the contest was over. Dan's going to do the same thing. I encourage everyone to just send your login immediately. One, you don't have to worry about it. You're done. Stress about it. It's whatever. But whatever's copied during the contest, that's what needs to be on there. And that's what you're sending in. So I know Dan will be doing that right away. Of course, the first thing we'll do is pull the scoreboard up. But, maybe it's like the third thing we're going to do. So I think that's very important.
Bill, any final thoughts?
Good luck, boys. I'm rooting for both of you.
Randy?
We'll be pushing the raw scores out probably Sunday for sure, maybe Saturday. So by then we'll see how it all settles out.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me. My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. This has been Q5 Ham Radio 73.